My boyfriend lent my plans to a rival company in order to help White Moonlight get promoted. The company was ransacked like a bandit, and all the documents in the office disappeared. I questioned him, but he looked contemptuous and unimpressed. No one will pick up your plan if you leave it by the side of the road, so I'll take this $50 as compensation for you. I didn't accept it and contacted the other company directly. Instead, the manager of the other party threw feces at the door of my company, saying that I maliciously stole his manuscript. Boyfriend is even on the internet for her to fight for her. To me to denigrate complain, decisively broke up with me. After the matter was exposed, he suffered from people's white eyes, by countless people online violence, but as expected and the White Moonlight together. But later he cried to me, said he regretted. After attending the wedding banquet of a good friend back to the company, I brought my luggage and parked in front of the company, but I saw that the company's door was open. Today is Saturday, at this time is only 5 o'clock. According to reason will not be someone to the company is right. Just walked to the door I froze. Company tables and chairs broken all over the place. The vase placed on the table into a pile of debris. Opened the conference door. The fan air conditioning wide open, countless documents flying toward me. Papers on the floor were full of footprints, while all the surrounding furniture had been maliciously damaged. It seemed that they were looking for something. Even the water purifier had to be cracked and smashed open. I was shocked and angry, and I was busy picking up important documents from the ground, picking up a dozen in a row. Instead, it was covered with footprints, and the original font could no longer be seen, so it was good that it could be wiped away. I could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Was about to call the staff to deal with. Scanning the circle, my heart suddenly raised. I breathed sharply straight to the second-floor safe. The cabinet was obviously violently opened. The entire lock was violently broken. Inside, the plan that I had worked so hard on and spent 3 months writing disappeared. All the company's surveillance cameras have been violently damaged, even if the maintenance cannot be repaired within a short period of time. I had planned to use this plan in the next few days, but now I can't submit it at all. My head was buzzing blank, dead suppressed anger. There was only one thought in my head. I want the other guy to pay. However, when the police arrived, so did the boyfriend John Smith. With a black face, he came and grabbed me by the ear. Lucy Ford, do you think the police are idle? You have to bother a comrade policeman, even for this trivial matter. I was confused by his scolding and looked at him incredulously. My company has become like this. Is it wrong for me to call the police? John Smith rolled his eyes as if he was too lazy to talk to me. Comrade policeman, you go back to your work first. There's nothing going on here. The cop wrinkled his eyebrows at me. So does this need to be investigated or not? I spoke firmly. I need it. John Smith snapped. It doesn't. I insisted on an investigation, but I saw his brow cross with impatience and he looked at me with a cold face. Do you have to make a big deal out of this? At my insistence, the police found the next-door surveillance, which showed John Smith entering my company. I looked at it 2 or 3 times incredulously and looked at John Smith fiercely. John Smith was full of indifference. So what if it's me? Said he, heavy cold grunt. I borrowed the things. As my girlfriend, you still call the police. Do you want people to come to arrest me? I looked at him and just felt chills all over my body. My body shook and sat on the chair. I was in a trance, and it took me a while to get over it. John, whoever you lent it to, now get my planner back quickly. He frowned, his expression breathless and disgruntled. Can't get it. I lent it to a friend. Statement that made me laugh in exasperation. That planner is my years of hard work. You lent it to a friend without my consent. Have you ever respected me? Also put my company into this situation. You are in theft, do you understand? The more I said, the more angry and powerless I became in my heart. John Smith, you now hurry to bring back the planner, or we are finished. John Smith was full of anger. Are you threatening me? I laughed out coldly. The stuff was originally mine. You didn't ask me before you borrowed it from someone else. Okay, now there is a company is tough, your most difficult time or I accompanied you through. But now a piece of crap document into this kind of ghost. You line. See, my attitude remains unchanged. John Smith finally promised to get the documents back within 3 days. 3 days later I waited and waited, but has not seen his figure. I called him, he hung up and sent a message, I'm getting it. It takes time, don't rush. But it wasn't until late at night that he replied to my message. There's a situation. She's gone to another city. He also assured me that he would get it back to me in 3 more days. But 3 days later, it was the day I had to submit my plan. I was anxious. Where is he? I'll go get it myself. John Smith, however, did not return my messages. I went to his home to look for him. The door was closed, and I learned from the neighbors that he had not returned for many days. Sending messages not returned, call not answer. I was anxious. This plan is related to the future development of the company, but also I spent 3 months of hard work. If it fell into someone else's hands, I could not imagine what would happen. Until the last day, John Smith finally called me. Are you tired of send so many messages, beware I sue you for harassment. I suppressed my anger. Where is my plan? John Smith sneered. I gave it to someone else. Before the words of questioning came out, a male voice came from the other end. I'm Annie Johnson. You must be John's girlfriend. Hearing this name, my heart went cold. Annie Johnson was John Smith's childhood best friend, also an employee of my rival company. Thinking about this, my tone sank slightly. The planner was borrowed by you. She laughed lightly. Yeah, don't blame John. I borrowed that planner from John. She borrowed it and John Smith gave it to him. Not even with my consent. That would be robbery. I had an icy chill in my heart and my voice went cold. It's been 6 days. When are you going to pay me back? At these words, John Smith's angry voice instantly came from the other end. Lucy Ford, what do you mean by that? What, you don't want to give back what you took from me? What did you tell me? 3 days and 3 days again. John Smith, are you kidding me? John Smith's tone was disdainful. What are you going to do if I don't give it back? It's just a crappy plan. You have a company, why do you need it? Plan will be given to Aya to use first. If you want it, I will give it to you. You can write another one. No wonder there was a delay in returning it. It turns out that he wanted to just steal it. I was so angry that my head swelled up and my anger went straight to my brain. Either the stuff is returned or I call the police. Either way, your choice. John Smith's tone was cold. Do you and I have to go this far? Annie is my sister-like existence. She is in trouble on the company. This planner can help her. Can't you write another one for my sake? Annie Johnson sighed softly. Ms. Ford, I know you don't look down on me, but this is useful for me to promote, Ms. Ford. You don't need it either. Can you let me have it? John Smith reassured her. There's no need to beg. It's a big deal. She'll have to rewrite it herself. I felt incredibly ridiculous that something I had spent months racking my brain and staying up all night to write had become so lightweight in his mouth. No way. I gritted my teeth. John Smith's voice deepens. Lucy Ford, do you really think that plan of yours is a treasure? If it wasn't for Annie Johnson, no one would have picked up your plan on the side of the road. There was a ding-dong sound, and the PayPal account arrived with $50. John Smith's tone was disdainful. This $50 is for your compensation, Lucy Ford. We broke up. Annie Johnson sighed lightly. Ms. Ford, this favor, I will remember it in my heart. Also, as long as my program is accepted tomorrow, then it will not be considered theft, but will belong to me in name only. Ms. Ford, you are talented. I'm sure it won't be difficult to rewrite it overnight. I didn't bother with words. I just hung up the phone and contacted my lawyer. Stealing someone else's planner was the most disgraceful behavior in the industry, and it was also a serious violation of the law. Since she did such a thing, she should think of the consequences. At the event, when it was my turn to submit, I handed in a blank document. The organizer was visibly angered. What's yours? I said, I've been submitting mine since someone else did it for me. With that said, I looked over at Annie Johnson. John Smith was standing next to her, suit and all, smiling. And the employee from the company behind them gave me a hard stare, full of anger. Noticing my sight, John Smith inclines his head and grunts, and Annie Johnson's eyes were full of ambition. How can Ms. Ford still turn in a blank answer sheet since she's here? Won't she make people laugh? Or is it that Ms. Ford wants to get back the planner? You know, whether it's stolen or not, once it's hired, it's mine even if it's not mine. I looked at him with a sneer. You're getting cocky before your time. It's not even hired yet, is it? Annie Johnson grunted coldly, and it didn't take long for all the company representatives sitting there to turn in theirs. I was the only one who hadn't. A group of people around me were watching the show and mocked me. No wonder I said something about stealing. Dare I say that I turned in my own blank paper wanting to steal my family's plan. Really shameless. And Annie Johnson, in the presence of all the witnesses, took my plan to win the admission. On stage, Annie Johnson was all smiles. Off stage, my boyfriend, who was applauding her, gave me a smug look in his eyes. It's a done deal, Lucy Ford, you're done. I gazed to the stage, my tone calm. I disagree. As the words fell, Annie Johnson's face instantly grimaced. Lucy Ford, don't give your face away. Her company boss swore and sneered at me. Ms. Ford, rumor-mongering without evidence carries criminal liability. That would be looking down on my division. If you don't give me an explanation today, don't blame me for not being polite. I raised my lips and snorted, taking out the document and flinging it directly at Annie Johnson's face. In the end, you might as well read it before you say who should explain to whom. Annie Johnson panicked for a few seconds and quickly looked at me calmly. Ms. Ford, I doubt you're jealous of the company behind me, but either way, since there's no proof, don't break the rules here. Originally, I was admiring Ms. Ford for coming to this position at Lucy's age, but now that I look at it, it's really disappointing. If it's really stealing, how did Ms. Ford know about it? Because the documents he stole were mine, and who says I have no proof? I smiled as I produced the documents and looked at Annie Johnson's already flustered expression and said slowly, the documents she's holding took me 3 months to write, and my thoughts are all over them. The next second, the documents in hand were snatched away and shredded by John Smith, who slapped me hard as his eyes erupted in fire. Lucy Ford, I know you've been suspicious of Annie Johnson because she's my childhood friend, but you can't do something to defame people, knowing that Annie's talent is all there for all to see. At this statement, there was an uproar around me, looking at me with eyes full of dissimilarity. Ms. Ford, this you cannot be right. John Smith was still continuing, I know you've been looking down on her because he's a bottom feeder coming up, but she's also fought her way up to this point on her own. After all, who would be as lucky as you are? The eyes of the people around me changed. Everyone in the room had come up from the bottom. Some even glared at me. He spoke with such emotion that my heart went cold with almost every word, until finally I had felt numb in my heart and was completely disappointed in her. The original you heart has always felt that I am very easy to rely on luck to get to now. Just open the company a few years. I should socialize drink to stomach bleeding. At that time there was no help. I stayed up all night to deal with company affairs, collapsed on the table, and almost died suddenly. It was you who sent me to the hospital. At that time you advised me to give up. But how can I give up? I don't want to see you hesitate half a day because of more than $10 of takeout can't get down. Also don't want to let you work hard to run outside in the wind and sun to give people takeout. More don't want to let our future become a mess, so I insisted. People in the room looked and slowly became a little complicated. Seems to also think back to their own entrepreneurial period. John Smith, on the other hand, was full of displeasure. How many years have passed since the incident and you're still selling it here? Do not want to face you. The original, I said, all this in her eyes are just selling misery. I was disheartened. Said in a deep voice, John Smith, we broke up. He sneered in disbelief and looked disdainful. We broke up a long time ago. Or I suggested it first. Not wanting to argue with him any further, I looked to Annie Johnson on stage. I myself have struggled from the bottom until now. I only despise those who have no ability, but can only cheat by robbing others of their achievements. Annie Johnson's face on the stage had darkened to the extreme. Don't spit blood. If you have the ability to show proof. I pulled my lips into a snort and looked at her with disdain. I've already sent Mr. Lewis my draft as well as a more complete plan, and where is yours? Is it hard to believe that the planning program you claim to have created for a year doesn't even have a draft? At those words, John Smith and Annie Johnson's faces changed in unison. Even though they got my finished product, the drafts and thoughts that I spent 3 months on were something they couldn't take away. What's more, after they took it away from me, I improved the program even more, and anyone with a clear eye would know who was the plagiarist. Mr. Lewis, the organizer, got my draft and looked at Annie Johnson. What's yours? Annie Johnson's face turned green and white and her eyes went to John Smith for help. John Smith tried to spill the beans and was shooed down. Since you're not Ms. Ford's boyfriend, please go down. He bumped into my shoulder hard as he brushed past me. I looked at her coldly. John Smith, I'd never stop you from trying to help her. But you can't step on my achievements to promote another woman. John Smith listens but is hopeful and pleads. Please just this once. She'll be looked down upon if it's blown up and stolen. I was completely disappointed in him and stopped looking at him. No way. Annie Johnson excused herself from the draft and threw it away, and was questioned by the organizers about the ideas on the draft, and she was stumped for words. When asked about the details, she turned pale and stopped talking. People present looked contemptuous. Get out of here. Steal someone else's plan and still have the face to sit here. People from Annie Johnson Company were even incredulous. Didn't you confirm with me that this is your planning proposal? How are you making the company look? Instantly they were all thrown out, and in the event, my proposal triumphed. After the launch, my company went to the next level. However, Annie Johnson was jealous and said on the internet that I stole other people's programs and relied on connections to achieve my success. She also edited the clip of her smiling on the stage and her sad exit at the back, which made her look even more miserable after being robbed of her achievements. This contrast drew the indignation of countless netizens. I am most disgusted with people who rely on relationships and rob others of their achievements. Really shameless. So have come to my company's various angry message, cursing the company to close down soon. I declared, this plan is made by me alone. It is Annie Johnson stole my plan before being kicked out. If you have any questions, feel free to sue. Annie Johnson did not respond, but John Smith came out. I am Ms. Ford's boyfriend. I can testify that Lucy Ford did steal Annie Johnson's plan, and also maliciously let people kick Annie Johnson out of the company. Upon hearing this, the people who were still a bit unconvinced entered in droves. Even the boyfriend has said, so how can this be false? I kept cursing angrily, and also told Annie Johnson to sue me. Annie Johnson finally spoke out. Forget it. I'm a bottom feeder who can't afford to mess with Ms. Ford. Also posted a video of her lying in a hospital bed getting beaten up, causing countless people to be outraged. I contacted Annie Johnson's company to deal with the situation and was coldly told that Annie Johnson was no longer an employee of theirs, making it clear that they didn't want to be involved. The organizer came out to clarify, but was rumored to have taken my money. My photo was put up as my last photo, and John Smith said he was relieved. He also said that he had paid a lot of money to be with me, and even worked hard to deliver food every day, and now I was failing him. This is the kind of talk that makes people who see it automatically think that he gave me all his money, and then I used it all up and dumped him. But that's not really the case. We've been together for 6 years, and even when I was at the height of my entrepreneurial struggles, I still gave him $10,000 a month in pocket money. It is he does not want to spend a sum of money saved, want to plan for the future. After the company got better, I gave him the card to give him unlimited spending, wanting him to live a happy life, and now the wrong person has become me. I organized the evidence and hung up the bills, as well as the lawyer's letter. But the situation didn't get any better. Being a girlfriend is supposed to be the right thing to do. There were even snickers, one size fits all. Even if you're a good girlfriend, you can't hide the fact that you're a thief of other people's achievements. If you're really innocent, why would the other company delay issuing a statement? It's obvious that there's something inside. No matter what I said, I was misinterpreted in every way. While I was scolded to the point of almost going into self-imposed isolation, Annie Johnson went on air every day, marketing herself on the internet as a capitalist, arousing the sympathy and anger of countless people. Some people even threw feces in front of my company and took videos and posted them online to ridicule me. Because of the fall in reputation, some partners were also affected and cut off contact with me. People who would speak out for me in the beginning were all blacklisted by the netizens, saying that they had been bribed by me to make all kinds of rumors about other people's children, and now no one dares to clarify the situation for me. John Smith said angrily and bluntly, people who do bad things will get what's coming to them. A group of people have marveled at her righteousness. Not to succumb to the capital boyfriend, she got countless people's attention. Annie Johnson was moved to speak. John and I grew up as childhood friends, and he's been there for me through many tough times, defying the powers that be to speak up for me, and it's because of that that Ms. Ford is so cynical. Immediately, someone chalked it up to me being jealous of Annie Johnson and stealing her planning. John Smith said, I wouldn't let a shameless person like that go, even if she was my girlfriend. The comment section was all egging them on to get together, and it even went straight to #1 on the Hot 100. They also opened a live broadcast to thank netizens, with smiles on their faces. And during this time, the surveillance had been repaired. All the images from that day were clear and crisp. I directly called the police to sue John Smith and Annie Johnson. Sending out a lawyer's letter on social media platforms, I spoke. Do you know how many years in prison you can get for stealing a company's trade secrets? A group of people did not believe. Not long after, both of them were arrested. Police issued a statement that the internet rumor that I stole his program and got someone to beat him up was false. What really happened was that he had disgraced the company by stealing my proposal and was beaten up by the higher-ups, but dumped it on my head. Being involved, Charles Lee's original company could no longer sit idly by and issued a clarification. About the theft incident, our company has fired Annie Johnson. As for the assault is a conflict between employees, our company will cooperate with the police investigation. There are also people seized. John Smith, my boyfriend, also stabbed me. This point not put. Said I have to be poor to what extent to attract my boyfriend so treated. Instantly drew countless angry replies. Who can guarantee that they meet people in life are good, but also help others to steal his girlfriend's heart and soul, at the expense of Ms. Ford is still so good to him. Can do such a thing is not a good thing. Luckily I was high on Annie Johnson and John Smith before. I hope they can get together, maybe people are in bed. Annie Johnson also said on the air how difficult it was for her to start her own business, and that Ms. Ford was able to succeed because she was lucky enough to get lucky by relying on her connections. It's obvious that she's incapable and wants to defy her people's efforts. Spit. Her previous live broadcast was also edited by various people. A sentence I'm not trying, just not people have connections is to get countless people's ridicule. After the incident, John Smith and Annie Johnson were fined and met again, already 3 months later. Since they did not cause any substantial damage, they were just released after paying the fine and were locked up for 3 months. They looked haggard, and when they saw me, their faces were full of anger. Lucy Ford, you still have the fucking face to appear in front of us? I tugged at the corner of my lips and snorted silently. It's not like I've done anything wrong. Why would I be afraid to show up in front of you guys? John Smith still wanted to say something, but was pulled by Annie Johnson. Forget it, can't afford to mess with it. Originally did not understand the meaning of her words, until I saw her at the banquet. I did not know that she set up her own company, and now pulls investment everywhere. At the party, John Smith was dressed in a white suit. Annie Johnson pulled him around to meet the old bosses with beer bellies. When he came to me, a hint of humiliation crossed Annie Johnson's face, while John Smith wrinkled his nose at me, his face full of anger. I look at them with a raised eyebrow, and soon Annie Johnson raises her glass and toasts me with a smile. I nod and take a drink and turn to leave. While brushing past me, Annie Johnson called out to me, Ms. Ford, if you could make it in the first place, so can I. When she spoke, her eyebrows were full of glare. I snorted out, relying on men to pull an investment. Even if you can make it, I despise you. In an instant, her face turned blue. John Smith pulled her back with a bright smile and a provocative gaze. As long as you can make it, even if you rely on men, so what, you have no one to rely on. My gaze falls on him for a moment, my tone calm, you're right. Only I looked over at Annie Johnson. Cherish the people who have one heart for you. Her face darkened and she wrapped an arm around John Smith next to her. None of your business. My eyes swept over the sweet smile on John Smith's face, something I hadn't seen when I was with him. At one time I would have wondered if I wasn't good enough for him. Now I realize that the person he loves has been Annie Johnson since the beginning, only choosing me because Annie Johnson is with someone else. I no longer say more, step away. Relying on men to pull investment will not last long. Her company will sooner or later close down. Just where did she get the money from? I can establish the company because of their own hard work and family gave some money, but still extremely difficult. And Annie Johnson seems to be a poor family, earned a few years of money, has also long been compensated to me. But these have nothing to do with me. I no longer pay attention to them. Instead, I bumped into John Smith at the hotel running out of someone else's hotel room, looking flustered and jumping into my arms. Lucy Ford, help me. Annie Johnson is selling me to someone else. He was crying with tears all over his face and his eyes were red, and I took a step back to keep my distance from him. Just then, a fat woman suddenly rushed out of the room. She looked at John Smith with a look of indignation. "Bitch, I'm not happy serving you. How fucking dare you seduce another woman?" She looked at me again. "He's already sold to me. You'd better get out of my way if you know what's good for you." John Smith panicked and explained to me, "No, I didn't. I thought I was being asked to stay with a client. I didn't know I was being asked to sleep with her." His voice choked as he got to the end of his sentence. "Lucy Ford, you help me. I want to puke just looking at someone so ugly." I asked her, "What about Annie Johnson?" His eyes got redder, but he was silent. The woman stepped forward and made a direct attempt to grab him. "You better get the fuck out of here if you know what's good for you, or I'll make it impossible for you to hang around." I looked at her calmly. "If I call the police for attempted rape, what will you be sentenced to?" "What attempted rape? I made a legal transaction." "Legal?" I snorted out a laugh. "Since you don't know the law, I'll let the comrade police officer come and popularize it." The woman looked flustered while Annie Johnson's voice came from the distance. "This is my family matter, so don't bother Ms. Ford with it." Annie Johnson came striding in. As soon as she arrived, John Smith's eyes reddened and he jumped straight into her arms. "Annie, I don't want to stay here. I want to go home." When the woman saw Annie Johnson come, her color became cold. "Annie Johnson, you have to give me an explanation for this today, or don't want me to invest," said. Cold smile left. Annie Johnson went forward to apologize, was thrown behind. Annie Johnson looked annoyed, but raised her chin and looked at me with an arrogant expression. "Ms. Ford, do you still want to stay and watch me deal with my family affairs?" I looked to John Smith. "Can I help you?" John Smith sniffs and shakes his head frantically, panicking as he explains to Annie Johnson, "She came on her own. I didn't ask for her help." Annie Johnson's eyes hold back. Ms. Ford is really nosy. I stopped looking at John Smith and just left. The next day, however, I saw that the hotel was on the news. A rich woman was stabbed several times by a man is in the hospital emergency, and the person in the picture is John Smith. At that moment, a group of people barged into my room. Annie Johnson led the way. Behind her was a group of police officers. She looked cold. "The night of the accident you were with John Smith. Now that he injured someone and fled, I suspect that the person is hiding in your place." I frowned, a little impatient. "John Smith is your boyfriend. Even if he's hiding, you're the most likely." At that, Annie Johnson lifted her lips and sneered. "Ms. Ford, is this afraid? Don't worry, my room has been searched. No, the most likely person now is you." Saying that, they directly went in to search. 10 minutes later, they did not search. Annie Johnson sneered. "I saw you and my boyfriend working together yesterday. It must be you who hid John." "Ms. Johnson is slandering can't be done, but still want to put the pot on me. Then only go to check the hotel surveillance. Surveillance is broken. Why is Ms. Ford pretending?" I looked at him coldly. "Ms. Johnson, John Smith was following you after I left last night. Now you can't wait to dump the pot on me. It really makes you wonder if it's related to Ms. Johnson." Annie Johnson wanted to say something else, but was stopped by the police behind her. "All right, don't talk nonsense without evidence, let's go." After they left, I asked people to look for news of John Smith, and the result was invariably that he was as if he had evaporated from the earth, and no trace of him could be found. After he disappeared, Annie Johnson became more active. Not only did she get that rich woman's investment, she also became Charles's girlfriend. I had a good relationship with him. Swept Annie Johnson a glance, raised my glass and touched his. "Charles, are you serious this time?" Charles Lee grunted lightly, looking unimpressed. "It's just for fun," said, lips curled into a smile. "But if it were you, maybe I would be more serious. It's a deep honor to be looked upon by the eldest young master. It's just that I already have a fiancé." He looked surprised. "Not bad. When are you going to get married?" Still in discussion. Between the talk, out of the corner of her eye, she glanced at Annie Johnson next to her with her head down. Her eyes humiliated and full of indignation. She got up and went to the restroom. Charles Lee looked over and grunted. "I'm replacing her when we get back." I asked him why, and he grunted. "You frowned when you looked at her. That's it. I'm afraid to keep around someone who doesn't even like someone as good-tempered as you." Annie Johnson was kicked out but hated me. "Did you say something to Charles? Why else would he kick me out? I was wronged. You should ask him, not me." Instead, She decided that I had badmouthed Charles Lee to cause her to be kicked out. If you do, then don't blame me. Within days, the internet was full of videos of me shielding John Smith from the hotel. The video was only a small clip, and it was made out by Annie Johnson that I was hooking up with John Smith, and for a while countless people were thinking that I was the one who was hiding John Smith. The surveillance of that day was really broken by her. I had someone investigate and accidentally found out that the person working at the surveillance was Annie Johnson's relative. I filed a direct complaint against the hotel and gave the information to the police. Annie Johnson intended to get me cyber-raped like before, but exposed the fact that she had surveillance in her hands. So Annie Johnson was arrested. Her company was barely holding on, and when she learned of the news, the investors ran straight for the hills. Shortly afterward, the police announced that John Smith was being held captive by a wealthy woman. The night of the incident, after I left, John Smith was forced by Annie Johnson to accompany the investors. John Smith stabbed the investor with a knife and has been held captive and abused by the rich woman ever since. Police had been suspecting Annie Johnson and me, and after the surveillance video was sent out, the police were even more directly targeting Annie Johnson. John Smith opened a live stream after getting out of the situation, frantically ranting about Annie Johnson. She tried to sell me to another woman. I was the wrong person all along. He reddened at the mention of the close call by his online friends. Lucy was the one who helped me when I almost got slighted, and at home, she never made me do chores. I would even take me on a date to Paris to surprise me on my birthday. I failed her. He spoke of his guilt for me and finally said firmly, "I'll make it up to her, make it up to her." Pop-ups were full of netizens setting me up with him, and I simply turned off my phone. It didn't take long for Annie Johnson to go in, and not just her, but along with the rich woman at the time, to be taken away. John Smith also exposed Annie Johnson in order to pull investment, looking for a lot of young children in the back of the conditioning specifically to send people. And that rich woman in bed and abusive fetish, but also had played dead people were pressed down. So Annie Johnson was sentenced to life imprisonment, while the rich woman was sentenced to 7 years. John Smith was praised by millions of people and became a popular anchor on the internet. This had nothing to do with me, except that he haunted me. I was in a coffee shop discussing the wedding with my fiancé William Clark. He came up and threw coffee in William Clark's face, but the coffee was iced. I was speechless and took out a paper towel to wipe it off. William Clark got up and went to the restroom, and I looked coldly at John Smith. "What are you doing?" He sat directly on the arm of the sofa, his body leaning on me, his smile even more smug. "I don't agree with you marrying him. Your marriage partner can only be me. Lucy Ford, I also know that you definitely have me in your heart. Otherwise, you wouldn't have protected me when I was bullied." I suppressed my anger in that situation. I would have helped even if the other person was a stranger. The smile at the corner of his lips stagnated, his face glaring at me in anger. "You're bullshitting. You have me in your heart. I admit that I was sorry for you before, but I have truly repented. Can't you forgive me?" I didn't say much. I directly called the police and fired the assistant who revealed my whereabouts directly. Good thing I had already confessed to William Clark before, and after resolving this John Smith matter, my boyfriend and I got married. Not out of love, but I wanted to get married and have my own kids and family. Although we had known each other for only 3 months, our personalities were compatible. On our wedding day, my parents and relatives from William Clark's side of the family were there, but I didn't expect John Smith to be there. He came to my wedding reception in a black suit with red eyes, not knowing where he got the news. "John Smith, you said you would marry me, and that you would only love me in this life." I looked at him coldly. "I did say that, but you refused." "John Smith, no one will stand still forever." John Smith's expression was pale and fragile, and his body was even more shaky. Suddenly, he looked angrily at William Clark. "But I can tell he doesn't love you at all." William Clark smiles with a frown on his face, not angry or annoyed. "I don't love her and she doesn't love me." My tone was calm. "It will only be him who will marry me whether he loves me or not." Security steps into the lobby at that moment and takes John Smith down. John Smith shook his head. "No, I don't believe it." After the wedding, I took William Clark on trips to various places, returning home midway through my pregnancy to recuperate. But I saw John Smith sitting at my home. She was like a different person. Smiling gently at me, "Lucy, you're back." My parents' expression, embarrassed, quickly pulled me to the side. "You left. He has been looking for the door to drive and cannot be driven away, daughter. You deal with it yourself." Man I once loved dearly, now I feel a headache when I look at him. I gave him a taxi with no expression. "Get out. You are not welcome in my house." Tears came to his eyes. "I really regret this, Lucy. Give me a chance." John Smith kept explaining, "I didn't say yes to your proposal before because I thought you were too young and not stable enough. Now I realize that you're the best person for me. My parents wouldn't have been that good to me." I looked coldly straight at him. "You just want someone to spoil you." "No, not me. I would love you too." He was still pestering me and I backed away from him. "John Smith, now that I'm married and have children, harass my family again and I'll call the police." At that, the expression on his face went blank for a split second. I left straight away, but he violently hugged me tightly. His voice took on a sobbing tone. "Lucy Ford, I can be the little one. Is it okay for me to be the little one? I really can't live without you. Stay with me and let me make it up to you and love you well." I frowned and wrenched away from him as John Smith fell to the floor, his expression frozen in disbelief. "You pushed me?" My lips twitched. "You're the one who didn't stand still." He got up and angrily questioned me. "Lucy Ford, I told you I could be the little one. What do you have against me?" I gave him a deep look. "John Smith, my heart is too small to hold two people." John Smith blushed miserably and smiled to himself. "You're in love with him? I don't believe it. The only person you would love would be me." Splat! William Clark stepped up from behind me and slapped John Smith across the face. "My wife, I will love myself. Mr. Smith still thinks this is ancient times, upstaging a man as a roommate." I was stunned for a moment as John Smith's expression grimaced. "Bitch, it was you. You seduced her." He still wanted to hit someone. I directly grabbed his wrist. "If you want to be mad, go somewhere else to be mad." At this point, the police arrived and took him away. John Smith looked at me blankly as he was taken away, his expression broken, tears in his eyes. William Clark reached out and pinched my cheek. "Don't look away, I get jealous too." I lowered my eyes and took him back. "It's cold outside, don't freeze." Lucy laughed. "John Smith is really blind to like Annie Johnson." After that, John Smith frantically changed his number and still messaged me. And I still got a lot of crazy messages after I pulled the plug. I changed my number directly. My life finally returned to a clean slate and gave birth to a son. I pinched my son's cute cheeks and felt warmth in my heart. Next year, I learned that John Smith was depressed and committed suicide.